эстонской сети бизнес-ангелов, член правления Nordic Bana, инвестор и очень интересный человек Рейн Лемберпу. Рейн будет сегодня говорить о таком важнейшем процессе для каждого стартапа, как how to raise money, fundraising process. Пожалуйста, в любой момент вы можете задавать вопросы Рейну. У нас, кому нужен дополнительный перевод, пожалуйста, вот там лежат всегда приемники, можете ими воспользоваться. И stage is yours. Okay. Да, можно будет чуть громче.
Hello everyone. I would like to have this quite interactive session, so it's always interesting to talk when I know what is interesting for you. And so it's not one of these formats where I will have a long talk and you will be all silent, and then in the end there are two questions which usually the moderator will ask. But instead, let's try to make this as a discussion. We are not that big of a crowd that we cannot actually interact. So that it will be interesting for you, and then it will be also interesting for me. Okay. I built this presentation in the concept of how to fundraise in a way, and to do this fundraising, you need to understand how the mind of the angel investor works, what kind of problems they have, what kind of things they're looking for. And I thought the best would be if I do a brief first half of, or maybe 1/3 of the presentation is actually meant for business angels. So I use these slides for a half an hour presentation in Denmark for Danish business angels, so that you get some idea what are the questions that the angels are asking themselves, and what options they are looking, and how they see things from investor point. And then we switch for the startup side, how do use this understanding in order to actually fundraise better. And obviously I'm speaking from a culture point of what we have in Estonia, which is pretty much what is also used in the Nordics, which is all copied from US. But not all parts of the world are having the same kind of approach. So it probably here it's quite different. I can already see when I go to Latvia, and if I go to Lithuania, it's changing, country by country. But okay, first of all, quick background of myself. I am active angel investor, first of all, or second of all, I don't know. Actually, I have many hats. But these are the companies that I've invested in the last 3 years, almost 20 companies, 19 at the moment. And with that, I'm also the most active angel in the Baltics. Last year I made 11 transactions, 6 new companies, 5 follow-up investments. And currently I'm also trying to find more companies, more startups outside of Estonia, because from here only 3 startups are not from Estonia. So one is Spanish, one is Latvian, one is German. But Estonia is very small, so I'm very interested to see if maybe also in Belarus there are some good teams. that match, the logic match. In addition to being an angel investor, maybe you can actually turn this so that I can see what's the slide. Okay. I'm also running very similar facility in Estonia like you have here in IMAGURU. I have actually 2 buildings, tech hubs, Spark and Startup Hub. So in total it's 7,000 square meters of size. There is co-working, event, office spaces, everything. And also I'm behind one of the, we started a new flagship event in Estonia. There used to be one, Latitude 59, maybe, I don't know, maybe some of you have heard or been there. There is another new one, Startup Day, which has happened 2 times till now, and it's already bigger event than the Latitude. So I'm one of the co-founders of this, but I'm also in the board of the Latitude 59. So I'm trying to be very active in the scene. Yep. So that's maybe a little bit. If we go a little bit further back in time, then I used to be a tech entrepreneur myself. There is a company called Playtech, which is one of the unicorns that Estonia has built. It's Estonian-Israeli joint venture, currently trading on a London stock exchange, a little bit less than 3 billion pounds. So I was the CEO of Estonian division, and I built it from 70 to 400 people. So that's a little bit of background. Now going to this angel approach. Basically, there is two, in simplistically put, there's 2 ways of investing. One is that you invest as a single investor in one round, or in sometimes also one investor per company. But this is not the standard way how the Nordics work and how the US works. Actually, probably you've heard a term syndication. This is actually even a confusing term, because I've discovered that many ecosystems, many countries use this word differently. For us, this means a group investment, meaning that there are more than one investor that is putting the finances into a single round. In Finland, they have a differentiation between the group and the syndication, meaning that the syndication is when, in addition that there is a group of investors, there is also one who is nominated to be a representative of others, meaning that there is one who actually, if there needs to be a signature on some contracts, there's actually one angel can do the signing. In Estonia, sometimes these representative rights are not given to one specific angel, which means then everyone who participated in the round will have to sign. And in America, in US, they are actually using the term syndication if there are many investor groups that now jointly invest into one startup. So there is one group of investors from one, like angel network or angel kind of group, and there is another one, and if those 2 groups put into one startup, then they call it a syndication. Otherwise, it's just an investment for them. So, as you see, terms can be confusing. Actually, they are in the full startup ecosystem. So, which means that if you are looking for investments, you need to understand the terminology this specific country is using, and not to assume that because it's the same word, syndication, it means exactly the same thing. So now I'm a little bit talking about the concept of why investors invest in syndicates, and let me see if I have it on the I have I stole slides from somewhere. So this is the returns of angel investments, meaning that it shows the distribution. If you have a portfolio of let's say 20 companies or 40 companies, then what's the percentage of those will return you less than the original investment? As you see, half returns less than you actually put in as an investor. And then there is a range of 1 to 5 times money back, and so it decreases. The logic is that, which is very different. If I'm the investor and I'm making one investment, then it's huge risk, and how you reduce it is the portfolio thinking. So which means that it's someone calculated you need at least 14 deals to have a portfolio effect, meaning that you will have this kind of distribution. No, this is like the normal distribution if you have a lot of investments. This automatically also means that you will have to reduce the ticket size, the amount of money you are putting per company, because otherwise you will need huge loads of money if you want to have like 30 companies and you will fully invest all the rounds. So that's not an angel investment anymore. It's kind of crazy investment, I would call. Which also means now that you need other investors to join in with you so that you can put less money. Otherwise, it's a very bad thing if you give too little money to a startup. So they are not able to actually achieve a proper next milestone. So you need actually other investors for being able to put smaller amounts. Also, one of the problems that all the investors have is that startups do not listen, which means that you can tell all kinds of things, but they will still think that you're stupid. In most of the cases, they are probably right, but in some cases, it would make sense if they also consider the voice of the investors. And now when you have a syndication of 7 with a good experienced investors and they are advising something, then it makes a lot more sense. You know, then it's just not your opinion against my opinion, but we're saying that, listen, we've seen this market, we have these kind of experiences, maybe you should consider. So it's in many things. It's in negotiating the terms, due diligence, monthly reporting, and so on. The other reason to invest in a syndicate is that I can also find deals that are much further away from my location. And how I do that, and this is something you also need to keep in mind if you want to get investors not from Belarus, is that the usual logic is that I'm not investing, angel are very locally investing. They want to be in a 2 hours drive away from the startup, and usually angels want to understand very well what is going on inside the team, And this is not possible if I'm from a different culture or it's very far from me. So I'm not able to actually be there and understand them. So what I do is that I will actually find a local angel who is close to the team, knows the culture, and can understand and be in contact with them. And I will actually build a relationship with that investor. And that is now part of the syndication, that if there is such a person, let's say, if I would invest in a Belarus company, I would actually want to have a good local angel or fund or someone who is here that I have a relationship with. I can ask how they are doing. You know, they don't just disappear, because startups disappear the moment they receive the money. That's, you know, they just, part of this is natural because they just need to do the work, and, you know, in talking with an investor is not actually a work. So you need someone who is close and can keep an eye and connection with the startup if you want to do cross-border investments. And there is 2 more points, which also very good thing to consider is that actually, let's say if I'm investing in an Estonian team, I'm forcing this team to raise money not from Estonia. You know, try to find investors from any other country except Estonia. And why? Because, first of all, if there are, let's say, 4 Estonian investors, then we will all have the same network. Okay, so the startup will have the same network, so it doesn't benefit much. We know the same people. But if I find one Belarus angel and one UK angel, and we are now in a syndication, then this startup has a much better connection, and also the connection to the outside of the country, because you don't want to build a startup that only focuses on domestic market. You want them to have a global market, so they need to think and see and hear people from outside of the country. So if the founders are not experienced previously in businesses that are multinational, then they have no idea that actually people think differently in different regions. So I would always prefer that the syndication is very diverse from different locations and different backgrounds as well. But obviously this is all visual thinking, because in many cases you will just take what you can take. But these are the reasons that angels are thinking, because you can start to see what kind of problems I see as an angel investor. Obviously, the last point is that when we find a good deal, we fall in love. So, which means that we don't see the obvious stuff. So, you would like to have another investor saying that, you know, have you considered this and that? Oh, actually, I didn't. So we can share the different expertise. We have different way of looking at. And also that I'm not the only stupid one, okay? Sometimes you want to be the only one, but in most cases you don't. You want to have others also seeing the same value, because that chances are that the customers will also see more value if the more investors see the value. Questions?
I see the point for the investor to invest as a syndicate, because it will have the investor will have a greater voice. But as a startup founder, probably I would prefer to deal with the investor separately in order to have more voting power in the future. Did I get it right?
As a startup, why would you want to deal with them separately? In a sense, if it's a syndicate, then
so they vote as a syndicate. For instance, there are 5 investors, each has like, I don't know, 4 points, right? But if there are 5 of them, so they in total have 20% of the shares, and they will vote as a 20% single entity. Am I right?
the question is how the contract is made.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's made in a way that there is one that represents the whole group, but sometimes it's they have all separate voting rights. So it depends on what you agreed. For you, it's easier if there is one representative actually, because just to, they're traveling, they are not, reachable all the time. So if you need like 5 signatures, one is like in Tokyo and will come next month, and you're just stuck. So it's much faster to have one. Obviously, it can create potential problems between the investors, or also reduce them, because then some people investors want to be passive. They don't want to be active. So you just need to make sure that the ones that you put as a representative actually want to be active, because not everyone wants to be. So, does it answer you?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on this topic? Few words about the angel networks. Actually, I will jump a little bit to this slide to actually explain what's the differences and what's the options that actually an angel has, and how these different kind of entities work. So you can also understand that it's not always the same again. There is something that is called business angel network. Usually it's, in short, it's BAN, like S-BAN, LIT-BAN. I think here you have B-BAN, Belarus BAN, business angel network. This usually means that it's group of investors who all share the deal flow, and but they make separate investment decisions. So if I'm part of S-BAN, then S-BAN will have usually some startups applying, and there will be pitching event, and then will be 10 startups presenting. Then each investor in that network will make a separate decision if this company is interesting for them to invest or not. So, which means that angel networks never invest money or make any kind of investment decisions. They just act as a network for first of all, to educate angels, to make sure that the angels know themselves, because the better angels know themselves, the more syndicates they will form, and then to share deal flow. And then everyone is making their own decisions. Angel group is a little bit different. In a sense, there are formal and more informal angel groups. Some angel groups say that they are making decisions jointly. Let's say it's a group of 7, and then they share the deal flows, and then they will say, are we now investing or we are not investing in that particular startup. If it's more formal, then let's say one example is Nordic Made, a group of 8 angels who stated that they will consider it as a Nordic Made investment if at least 50% of angels invest into the startup. So they are also separately deciding who will join, but then they will make a joint, always the same group makes the decision, and then they invest or not. In some cases, the groups are formal, meaning that they will always invest as the same group. So it's just always the same people. And informal and not formal means also sometimes that whether they just use a Slack channel or some whatever Skype chat to discuss the deals, and there is no other entity that actually unites them. There is no contracts or anything that bounds them. Then there is, it goes more kind of structured, which is a fund. Here I'm just bringing out the angel fund. Obviously there is also venture funds as well, but as this is a presentation I did for angels, then I didn't put the VC into this scheme, although the logic is pretty much the same. Fund, the difference between a fund and a group and a network is that the fund always collects money up front. So they will gather the investment money from all the investors. In that case, they will call limited partners. And the one that is running this, you know, some angel is taking the lead in terms of managing this fund. This is called GP, general partner. And they collect the money up front, and then they will make the decisions. And obviously different funds use different decision logic. In VCs, usually the GPs are making, the general partners are making the decisions which in startups they are investing in. If it's more of angel fund, then it's more likely that all the angels that participate in that fund actually will also participate in the voting, but not always. So there's a different. So just for you to understand who actually decides what, if you will talk to someone, if you will present it to a fund or a network. So there is no point in convincing a deal flow manager on angel network that this is a good project, because that person doesn't make any decisions. So it's not going to help to pitch that person. And microfund is I would call it's one-time fund. Usually it's associated with events. Let's say now there are 4 angel networks, actually 5. Litman also decided to do this type of event fund investment, which means that, let's talk about Litman. There will be this startup fair in May, and they will collect interest from upfront interest from their members, meaning from Lithuanian business network. Let's say there will be 20 angels interested. They will each put, I think in their case, they will put very small amount, like 2,500 euros. So they will have some 50,000 or 70,000 euros. And in case of Litman, they are actually doubling with some fund money, so it will be double the amount. And now what happens is that there will be this event, and startups can apply for a pitching. You know, usually you apply for a pitching competition. Pitching competitions in general are not very good use of time actually for startup, because they serve a certain purpose, and some startups like them, some don't. They definitely take a lot of time and energy. And usually you will be the winner of pitching competition, but that's it. You will get maybe some benefits. Maybe there is some prize money, sometimes not even that. But in this case, if it's a micro fund for the event, you will get an investment. For Litman, it's maybe up to 100,000. Estban is running it as well. We have 33 angels times 5,000. It's like 100 and something, 65,000 case. Yes, someone is talking. I thought it's someone's noticed I cannot calculate math, so it's just and then they jointly decide who will get the investment. So that's the micro fund type of thing. All the investors that put the money will make the decision. So these are the different angel investor organization forms. So depending with which one you will approach to get funding, or if you happen to be an angel or want to be an angel, then these are the different options that you can choose from, which ones to join. Obviously, I'm part of many angel networks. In addition to Westban, I'm also now in Litban, and also member of board of Nordic Ban, which is an umbrella organization for angel networks. And the reason I want to be part of angel networks is that I need those syndication partners. So I need a network of angels. And I'm specifically, because I'm more active, I'm actually having a separate kind of contact list or database of angels and also VCs for several reasons. I sometimes I need them for syndication, but actually more often than not I will need them for the follow-up rounds where there will be more bigger needs of money for startups. And then I need a network of investors that I can do interest for this startup. So this is, as a startup, you can also ask if you are checking if this investor is a good investor. You can ask for uplink connections. Do they have a network or people, or you know, how can they help you raising the next rounds, you know, not this one but the next one, once already this round is finalized. So you need to have some kind of as an angel I need to have like hundreds of investor contacts myself. So it's not just only that the startup has to build their own database of connections, but also active investors also need to do the same thing. And this means also I'm getting better deals, because now I'm sharing deals and I'm asking, do you have anything interesting? So I have like more eyes on in the ecosystem, and I can find deals outside of my own region and so on. And obviously, yes, so any questions about this kind of networks and stuff?
Yeah, по-русски, наверное, лучше. Рейн, какая из этих форм, если мы смотрим со стороны стартапа, какому ангелу стартапа лучше идти? С кем потом быстрее можно будет договориться? Да, то есть либо он в бане, либо он отдельно, либо он в какой-то из этих групп, формальных, неформальных. Вот с точки зрения стартапа, на что обращать внимание, на кого?
When it's the first round you're putting together, then obviously, and you don't have a network of investors already, then I would recommend that you approach first angel networks and events, because you need attention from angel network. You will get, you know, most contacts in less time. If you are already more advanced, then it's actually vice versa. I don't recommend to use angel networks or also event pitching. I would go straight to the angel groups or funds or specific angels. You know, okay, I know this angel, I will go straight. Because this obviously means that you already have some results, some traction, some KPIs, and you can kind of a little bit choose. In the beginning, you don't have that, so you need exposure. Hop. Mm-hmm. Is it still working? Yeah, one thing is working, the other one? Yes, translation works. I will now. I'm starting to feel like a robot. Okay. I'll put it into second pocket. So I have. This is not good. Does it answer a question? Any question from? Yes.
Okay, let's go to a little bit in the future and let's talk about the A round. So, for example, I'm the A round fund and I'm looking at the startup. So which one do you think is more correct? A, I'm looking at the startup backed by the syndicate of the angels and I think, well, it's kind of cool because there are a lot of angels and I can use the network of all these angels and stuff, so I'm gonna invest. Or B, this startup is backed by the syndicate of the angels. None of those are actually put some skin in the game, so most of them don't really care about the project, so they just spray and pray strategy. So I guess I'm gonna pass and go somewhere where there is one or two angels who are actually deep in the project.
Obviously, if you just look at the cap table and you see a lot of angels on it, then it's, if you're a VC or a fund, then it's very difficult to say by the names which one is active or which one is not active. For example, I might appear pretty active in the market, meaning that I'm visible, I'm here and there, and I'm investing a lot. But does this guarantee that actually I have time for the startup? Actually not. So maybe some investors, but this is very difficult to say because not every angel is visible. So there are some angels that they make investments, they never advertise it, they never go to speak publicly about it, and they might spend quite a lot of time with the startup. But then again, this also doesn't tell you too much because you can spend a lot of time and distract the startup, or and me personally, I'm like dynamically active, meaning that if the startup feels that he needs my advice, then I'm putting as much energy as needed to help. I'm mostly working with the psychological and team problems, human problems. For example, I just read I just got from my portfolio company one email, like a long email, where it was a solo founder company. And they tried to he tried to find another co-founder so that they can progress further and so on. And now this little bit less than a year process, they have been working together, and this new co-founder said that either one of us has to leave the company because it's not working like this. So it's a serious issue in a company. So and now I need to be active on that company because that's my expertise and that's where they come to ask for support. Unfortunately, I'm here, so it's this is not the type of thing that can work out very well on a phone. So you need to be close. That's another thing why you would want to be close to your startups. Yes, so coming back to your question, from a fund perspective, which one to choose? Usually, actually, I think funds are just looking at the cap table, and they just want to see if the cap table is messy or not. And this can mean several things. One thing it can mean is that there are just so many investors on board that you have no idea what kind of rights and shares and who has something, because in a startup world you can do deals in a crazy amount of different ways, and you can have like a different contract with every single investor you have, so that no one in the end knows what's actually the situation in this cap table.
So from this perspective, the less people on the cap table you see, the cleaner it is.
Yes, yes. From that perspective, the less there is, the cleaner, the better. And sometimes if it's messy, then also VCs say that, okay, you need to clean it up. And it's possible. It's not that, because also, in the end of the day, angels also understand if they are blocker. Now, okay, there is a VC that wants to put 5 million, but you know, yeah, just we need to sort it out. So usually you will create a SPV, special purpose vehicle, put those angels under this as equity owners in this company, and this company will invest as a one person and will be one line in a cap table.
So just to conclude, if you have the possibility to deal with 1 or 2 business angels instead of 5 or 4 or 5 or 6, it's better to go with 2 if you have enough money.
Not necessarily, because you will still have less network, less connections, and also less expertise. So I think if I would be a founder, I would not make a syndicate more than maybe 7-8 persons. Okay, from that on it becomes some kind of crowd, but it also depends how much you're raising. So if you are putting together 1 million round of angels, then 7 is a bit tricky. So if you are not able to use VC money to do this kind of round, then you are maybe forced to use 15. So but more than 7, I think it's like as a group, it's too much to handle. 2 versus 5, I would choose 5 actually.
And just one more thing to clarify. If this extra 5 people brings basically nothing but money, so you don't actually believe in their network, then it's better to skip, right?
That's in any case, if you can reduce passive investors, which are only there to put financial benefit, then ideally you would have 0 of those. Okay, so that's called the smart capital, that you always want someone who actually brings something on a table. So that if that's an option, then yes, there is no need to have them more, because they are not putting any additional value, just another signature and someone to report to. No point.
Добрый день, Молчин Игорь, клуб бизнесменов ВАИС. И вопрос касается корпоративного управления. Существуют ли какие-то успешные практики для стартапов, которые одобрены вот сетями бизнес-ангелов, как те, которые имеет смысл иметь, прежде чем обращаться к ангелу за инвестициями? Я имею в виду система финансового планирования, там, структура компании, там, какая-то система поощрения персонала, то есть корпоративное управление, методики корпоративного управления. Существует ли какая-то вот best practice?
Okay. With angels, it's pretty simple. There are none, most in general. Okay. Obviously, angel networks in different countries are different. So in some countries you will have some. Corporate governance comes in usually when the VC wants to join. Then you will have more things. But I'm saying this is that there is no like requirements that you tick off. Okay, I have this, and I have this. Nevertheless, if it's a healthy team, and I'm speaking from an angel perspective, this means that this is an early team. It's maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. A healthy team anyway has, first of all, shareholders agreement, meaning an agreement between the founders. What happens if one leaves? What happens if there are disagreements? You know, this kind of terms, we call it shareholder agreement, which specifically sets the terms between the founders before they go to fundraise. So that's one thing you would expect to be in place before you make investments. You would also need to have some kind of option pool for employees if they are coming on board. Usually investors want the option pool to be there before they invest, for a very simple reason, is that if it's created afterwards, they will get diluted. So sometimes it's agreed that we will form it later on. You know, it depends, but that's also something you would like to see, that the founders are willing to share equity with their employees, especially the key employees, because if it's going to be a unicorn, you need options to incentivize employees as well. Other than that, obviously you want them to have proper job contracts so that it's not just someone on a verbal agreement. Depending on a business, if it's in a field where you will need patents, then you will need to have more paperwork, because for patents you will need to make sure that also the company specifically have the right to actually acquire the patents and not the employees, because some inventions sometimes employees can file. So there has to be some kind of more legal setup in terms of how to protect that you actually have the IP in the company and those IPs being used and patented by the startup. That's the minimum. Okay, anything you put in extra could be of benefit if you have well-functioning advisory board, if you have some procedures how you make budgets and stuff like this. It could be of help, not necessarily needed. But it also depends on an ecosystem, because I'm talking about kind of Nordic perspective, which is very trust-based. So you would actually, and that's also one of the things that I put into some of the coming slides, is that if I will catch that the startup founder is lying in whatever way, then the trust is gone. Which means that obviously I don't want to do much. If it's before the investment, I will just not make an investment. I will not try to solve the situation with legal paperwork, or okay, now I need to just double check you or triple check, or just if there is no trust, let's not do a deal. So in a sense, in Nordics, people expect that things are in line anyway as a default. Okay, so if there is some signs that they are not, then the chances are that you will not get any funding at all. So and me personally, actually, the verbal agreement is stronger than the written one, because this is very bad relationship where I need to go into a contract and say point 7.4 says this and now I have this right. You have basically, it's like you know, this is like a game of lawyers. That's no relationship. That there is no intelligent way of actually agreeing what can we do. We're not making it a win-win anymore, but just trying to make sure who's gonna lose. So I use mostly contracts to make sure that I don't forget what we agreed verbally because memory is not, you know, if you have many agreements, then it's very difficult to remember what did you agree.
Я знаю случаи, когда консультанты по управлению, специализирующиеся на внедрении системы управления, помогают выращивать капитализацию компаний просто за счет правильного администрирования процессов, бизнес-процессов. Привлекают ли бизнес-ангелы консультантов по управлению, если необходимо, ну, упорядочить бизнес-процессы? Такая практика есть или нет?
Usually in an early phase, you don't want to have too many procedures in a company. Okay? There is some confusion.
Нет, еще новый вопрос.
I'm just, I will just finish. The logic is that I would say that a company needs proper procedures and you know, become more streamlined and more organized when it grows more than 30 people. So, and if you are burning like more than 100,000 per month, because before that you actually want a startup to be very agile, meaning that they can change tomorrow. Okay, we did this like yesterday. Now we do it differently. We do it differently every day. But when it grows to 30 plus, then you will have some teams. You need some structure. Then you will need processes. You know, okay, how do we do procurement? You know, how we actually do all this tech support, and you know, do we have some ticketing systems in place, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's I would say is when you go to the scaling phase, then it becomes very crucial. And actually, after you have survived the kind of some product market fit, usually companies die because they don't know how to scale. And then you will need this kind of procedures. But if it's a team of 5 people doing something, then it's just, if you have then some kind of, you know, policies, internal policies or procedures, then I think they are distracting, and it's you know, taking all the fun and urgency out of the game. There was another question.
Первый вопрос. Почему вы инвестировали в стартап с одним основателем?
Why did I invest in startup with one founder? It's a good question. I prefer to invest when there are at least 2 founders or 3. Rarely when there are 4, and never when there are more than 4 founders. Still, in some cases, you know, solo founder doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot succeed. Although I've seen most difficulties with, in my portfolio specifically, when there is only one founder. The reason is that if it's one founder, then this founder is all by himself or herself. There is no one else you can talk to. Because you can have a team of 10, but if you're one founder, then your team will not have the same psychological pressure as the founder has. They need to make decisions completely on their own, and there is no one to even discuss. You know, your team doesn't understand, your friends don't understand you. If you have a wife or a husband, then they don't understand. So there is actually, you are pretty alone, and there are a lot of difficult decisions to be made, and you have no one to actually ping pong, you know, what do you think this, okay, that, who is actually in the same position as you. And that's very difficult. So that's, obviously, you did ask actually a question, why did I invest? if I still like the founder and I like the idea, I don't think it's like a complete blocker for me. So you can succeed as a solo founder as well. Our most advanced company in the portfolio is this Click and Grow. Yeah, it's a solo founder. They are making 3 million in revenue at the moment. It's a team of 35 people at the moment. Valuation around 50 million or something like this. But it's solo founder team. And he has a lot of difficulties, and he's very come close to a couple of times complete burnout. But it's very interesting case still. So yeah, that's.
Так, и еще один вопрос. Когда основатель или стартап раздал по 7%, 50% своей компании. Ну, больше 50 нельзя раздавать. Ну, должно 50% остаться у основателей. И ему нужны еще деньги. Получается, инвесторы должны продавать свою долю? Или как?
I didn't understand quite. What is the case? There has been one funding round, and 40% of the company was given to investors. No?
Нет. По 7%, ну, стандартно, например, по 7% инвестировало там 7 инвесторов. И он раздал таким образом 50%. Ну, правильно, ну, если...
In one round?
Нет, в первый раунд он раздал... Ладно, давайте. В первый раунд он раздал 7% компании. Получил 25 тысяч. Ну, 50 тысяч долларов. Но ему нужно, например, 10 миллионов долларов, если это железный стартап, hardware, то он еще получил нескольких стадий раундов, да, инвестиций и раздал 50%. И ему еще нужно деньги.
Окей.
Но он не смог найти, например, на стадии А инвестора на 2 миллиона. Он нашел по 75 тысяч и так раздал.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure I get what you're asking, but one thing is that usually the rule of thumb is that when you are doing an A round, the founders should have more than 50% of shares. If you will do B, C, D, E, F rounds, you will always have anyway less than 50% of shares. So you need to understand this is now VC game. This is not a founder game anymore. You know, there are VCs who put tens of millions or hundreds of millions of euros. They will have very strict rules, and they will have board seats, advisory seats, and they will take quite a lot of control of the company. But that's now your decision. Will you go this kind of crazy scaling, or you want to actually gain the have the control over the startup? But usually when you will need like tens of millions of euros, you will have to give up the control.
Ваше мнение, какой оптимальный пул для опциона для будущих сотрудников в команду? И на основании до денег, до первого раунда изначально планировать?
This is usually 10 to 15% of the company if you plan it in an early stage. Let's say before, if you make an option pool before the first round, then you can have like 15%. Obviously, the later you will create it, the less you will have it for that. Usually, if there is also this kind of 10% equity rule. If you have a less than 10% equity in a company in an early stage, then you are not considered as a founder, co-founder. You are considered as a strategic employee.
В продолжение. Оптимально, как трое друзей собрались делать стартап, у всех разные роли, еще никто не знает, насколько они будут подробно вовлечены, как им между собой распределить доли. Поровну или какие-то сложные правила должны быть оговорены по времени, по усилиям, которые должны быть вложены, или нет каких-то четких правил, каждый договаривается как хочет.
So it's 3 founders, and how to agree how much in ideal case you will have equal shares. Okay, if you cannot have that, then the question is what's wrong. Okay, why does some need to have more and why some needs to have less? If some needs to have less because let's say they can invest less time, then that's a very bad problem. You should not have co-founders who cannot give like 100% of their time. Now, if it's because of you don't need that kind of the skill level in that area is less, then it could be one of the ways, but then it's a negotiation. The trick is that everyone needs to feel that they are treated fairly. So it's just an open discussion, you know, what is the fair? The best scenario is that we are all so important that we can have equal share. Obviously, there will be one who will be the leading, and that's another common mistake if teams are formed and let's say even they are equal, then teams do not decide who is the CEO, who is the lead, who is actually the one who is putting the vision out, okay? Because if that is not agreed, then there will be a lot of small internal hidden conflicts between the minds of people, because even if we say that this is the one thing that we all want to do, every person will have a different picture in their mind. And if no one has said that we will use my picture, then even if we don't speak about it, then we will try to decide this thing, and then this mismatch between the pictures, and then we are arguing, even not understanding that it becomes because we didn't decide which picture we will use.
Вы говорите как важно стартапам понимать, какими глазами на них будут смотреть бизнес-ангелы. В свою очередь, вы понимаете, какими глазами смотрят венчурные инвесторы поздних стадий, и, соответственно, даете рекомендации стартапам, что им надо делать, чтобы они были интересны для следующих раундов, для большого венчурного капитала. Какие KPI они должны соблюдать, какой трекшн они должны показать.
So you want to understand how to be attractive to angel investor?
Нет, вы как ангел вкладываетесь в стартап, но при этом вы понимаете, что на поздних стадиях вы будете также приводить этот стартап к большим инвестициям у венчурных инвесторов. Вы как-то даете задание стартапам, что они должны делать, чтобы быть привлекательными для поздних раундов, для инвестиций на поздних стадиях?
Yes, obviously, first of all, the startup has to decide how they want to grow the company. If they want to grow the company using the VC capital, then I'm definitely can advise on what the VC will be looking and what kind of milestones they need, what kind of KPIs they need to have to be interesting, even for a VCs to look. And then we can have a discussion how to achieve those.
Тогда еще маленький вопрос. Я так понимаю, что вот в Восточной Европе вообще принято, что бизнес-ангелы это все-таки ранние стадии, раунд А максимум. В вашем случае, что бизнес-ангелы, они могут инвестировать и на более поздних стадиях, более серьезные суммы.
Actually, the standard as long as I know, all over the globe is that angels invest up to $500,000 round. There are few cases where angels invest up to 1 million, and usually it's called a kind of super angel who is putting more than 100,000 euros as a ticket. So so that's in a sense all angels are still in early stage. There are few who actually want to put between the million and 2 million, but it's from there on it's only VC. Okay, I will go now to this. We already actually jumped into this startup thinking side as well. I will skip some slide from the investor perspective. And what would you need to actually plan to attract angel money? And I'm explaining some logic what I am as an angel investor I'm looking at. The first thing is that you need to figure out how much money you will need. And the trick actually here is that you will use this money to prepare for a next funding round, unless you want to use this money to become break-even, cash flow positive. So you have these two options. So either you go cash flow positive with this funding round, or you know that this will not be enough and you will need another round, which is usually the case. You will usually need more than one round, become cash flow positive. Now you need to understand that the first money you will raise is usually based on the vision that you have. The second round you will raise has to become based on KPIs, traction, what did you achieve with this first funding round. And that's where the depth of the startup actually comes, is that they raise like, let's say, $500,000, and that will not be sufficient to actually have enough traction to get the next funding round. And now you're stuck. You cannot, because you don't have the traction, you cannot raise money, you cannot prove traction as well, because you're now running out of money. So the logic is that you need to think kind of, okay, I'm planning for this funding round, but if this funding round is not going to be enough to go cash flow positive, then I need to already plan the next round as well. And for that, you need to achieve some kind of milestones with your company. Usually, it's very simple. It's some revenue. What is the revenue level that you need to have? Or if it's not revenue, then how many active customers you need to have? You need to prove that customers want to buy your product or service. And that's kind of the only thing. And now you need to make sure that, okay, if I want to have next funding round, let's say 20,000 monthly recurring revenue, so what do I need to do for that? How much time it will need? If it will take me 2 years, then I need to plan this 2 years. If for that I need to have a team of 12 people, then that's how I calculate how big the team is. Usually the burn rate, the amount of money you need in each month is very strongly correlated with with a number of members in a team, and specifically now talking more about software startups. Obviously, hardware is a completely different ball game. There you have a different set of different stages, you know, where how you will kind of go to mass production and so on. Or if it's some medical stuff, then it's also completely different. Or if there are some other kind of long processes that you need some authorization and approval or some licensing, or then it's a different. But for software, most of the software stuff, it's just the number of people in a team and how long you need to take. It takes to actually get those KPIs for the next funding round. So the rule of thumb is that you will need money at least for a year and a half, and now you need to figure out what is the state you want to be in a year and a half, and there you will know the KPIs, and then you will work out how many people you will need in a team, and then you will know how much money you will need. Okay, and usually the valuation you will get from this logic is that if you planned everything well, then you should not give more than 20% away for this 1.5 years. So you will get now, depending on what type of team or what of milestone you want to achieve, the valuation can be very different now. But you need to also show the investor that the plan is, first of all, realistic, and it's lean, meaning you just don't want to hire 20 people or triple the salaries or whatever, or you know, have some kind of crazy advertising budget or travel budget or something, so that it's really lean model of getting to those milestones, and then you will get the amount of money you will need and the valuation for that as well.
Up to this, the first point, how much money do you need? I suppose you as an investor, you look out as well as the budget and how this money will be spent. And if I'm a startupper, so I need to prepare some budget, I'm looking through the items and I understand that I need 85%, and these will be only salaries, or I have 60% or something. So as a startup, how should I divide it for you as an investor to give money to me? You like my budget.
Okay, as I said, it's for software startups, it's mainly depending on what you want to achieve. You need to either see how much product development you want to achieve, you know, advance, or how much sales or marketing, or what kind of specific roles you need to fill with them. Usually, you it's basically planning the team, how you will hire. If the hiring plan is reasonable in terms of what you want to achieve, then I'm as an investor, I'm happy with that. So it's I don't think there is not too many, you know, there is every other budget is actually quite related to the team structure. So I can see the development versus sales and marketing kind of proportions in a team, and depending on the milestones, I can think that, okay, is this a good proportion to actually achieve that? Do I need more development or more sales to happen? Usually, in Europe, we are always product oriented, or you know, trying to engineering. So there are not enough put resources on a sales and marketing inside. So if I will see from the milestones that that's what's needed, then you know, instead of hiring 3 more developers, let's have 3 sales guys. Does it answer your question? Okay.
Now, when you have this 18 months burn rate, I will ask my question again. For example, you're in a hardware startup and you realize that, okay, optimistically, you will need 3 to 5 months to bring your product to the market. However, with the hardware stuff, with legal stuff, there is a chance that it will take more time for you, and also not just you need to bring your product to the market in order to raise the next round, but you will also need a certain amount of time to raise the next round. And now you have a choice whether you go with your top-notch angel investors, like 2 of them, raise the money not for the 18, but let's just say for 6 months, try to go to the market fast, or you take some extra angel investors, which are not that good enough. We spoke about it later. But you will guarantee you will have a burn-in rate for like 12 or 18 months. So what would you do? Take more money, or assume that even in worst case scenario you can get back to those angel investors and bring them on board 6 months later if you are not lucky enough?
First of all, in my opinion, hardware stuff is 10 times more difficult than software. So and things take 3 times more time than the angels. The team is actually planning, and I would take, if it's a hardware startup, I would take as much as money as I can get from the market, provided that I don't give too much, the valuation is balancing that. I cannot give like half of the company away, because...
No, you're a good hardware startup, it's a convertible note, it's a high cap, from this point it's okay.
So I would take as much because as possible, because I'm in hardware, usually there are so many unexpected things, and you can have those 1,000 units out there, and then you will find, damn it, I need to call all these devices back and redo them. And then if you don't have the resources, then your ability to convince later, when you have having failures already, that join now, and it's
But you will have your product on a later stage at that time, and you can still, keep on with those previous
yes, but
angels.
but as you said, the product is not out there. So now you're giving me the story that, okay, I had this plan, but I failed, and I will call the investors anyway to ask what happened, why did you invest, what was the milestone that you agreed that you will get with this money. So I will have to find out that you failed in some way. So it's very difficult to sell if you are saying, okay, I failed with this because there is like million of excuses that all the startups bring you anyway, why they failed. And just give me more money because now we made the mistakes, and now it's going to definitely happen. There has been I've been specifically monitoring one hardware startup doing this, and I did even like them in the beginning, but just didn't make the investment then. But he kept coming back to me, and it's like 6 months later. Then okay, we still haven't done this, but now we found out this, and and then. No, I'm not going to invest at the moment. Maybe if you get some progress, then talk to me again. And 6 months later, he's coming again. He's still in the same place, like 6 months ago, with a different story why it didn't happen. And they have really tough times. Even if they now they couldn't raise any more from Estonia because angels in Estonia did not believe anymore the story. Okay. Doesn't mean that it's not a good startup, actually. It's just very hard to sell if you have failures. So he went to US and was able to raise from Jason Calacanis, who is one of the super angels in US, and written books and stuff like this. And but they're still struggling. They did raise the funds, $500,000. And they are now actually pivoting because the product that they created was not actually need it that much, or they didn't sell as much as they wanted. Now they are using the same technology, but they need to have a completely new product. So it's very difficult in the hardware scene. So I would take as much money upfront as possible if going for hardware, and then hope that you can actually deliver, so that you can say that I sold those 1,000 units, and then you can get to the next round. In the between those stages to get more money, it's mission impossible.
Okay, but now when I heard your answer, I need to clarify some points again and ask the question again. Well, number one, what you just advised me is goes in conflict with your previous advice. Number two, I'm not talking about like taking the money and not getting any results. I'm talking about you're getting the product is working fine, but there are obvious legal issues.
Okay.
Like with using drones in the cities and stuff like that. So obviously you can demonstrate a progress. So how about that? I mean, if you have a world-class product that you can demonstrate, and you even start a small-scale production by the time, and you're kept, you know, like you stayed in the connection with those angels. But again, what these angels can bring on the board is just money, basically. So will your advice change now?
If there is attraction, because
well, completing a product is attraction, obviously.
Basically, any kind of KPIs beat everything, you know. So if you can show that we have done this, that, and that, and the main thing that I'm looking is actually the customer validation. You can show me that actually there are some pre-orders or whatever. I cannot just sell because I'm still missing this legal paperwork, or you know, I don't have this license or that license. But there is I can show you the traction, and I have the KPIs. Then you are in a very good position, which means that you can choose, because. And even the pitch deck and all the presentation skills, and that doesn't matter if you have actually good validation from the market. So it's a completely different case then now, and in that case, obviously, you will raise as less as possible from as less people as possible, considering that the others are just financial investors, not value-add investors. So it's a different case.
I made my mind then, so thank you.
Okay.
So for these very early stages, what is the best approach for founder's salary? For example, if I already burned all my savings as a founder, or is it a bad mark if I am as a founder want to set some salary for this burnout, for financial?
Okay. There are different concepts that angels use. Some say that if you as a founder are paying yourself a market level salary, then you as a founder are taking zero risk. You almost as if working in a company. So these investors will definitely want to see that you will pay yourself less. Okay. Me personally, that is not an issue. If I'm not looking for the founders to pay less, but definitely it has to be reasonable considering how much money you have at your bank account. So if I'm paying myself market level salary and I have only like 4 months of runway, this is for me a problem of attitude. Okay, you don't care that you have less money. You will just pay like any other position job would do. Another thing is that, and this concerns now this budgeting. if I'm looking at the financials, if they will, let's say they put together a round of 700,000 euros, and I will see that the moment they will get money, they will double their salaries. That's a bad sign. Okay, so it's you just want to cash out my money. That doesn't look good. At the same time, I think it's very healthy that you will have a salary, not to work for free, because if you are doing a startup, then it will take 7 or maybe 10 or 15 years before you will actually get any serious amount of cash. So this means that this is a long time in anyone's life, and you maybe want to have a family, or children, or house or home. You need to be able to have those, so that you will not run out of motivation. Why the hell I'm doing all of this, because I'm not getting even properly paid. So comparing on a stage, or for how long have you worked on this startup, I think you need to also increase your salary as you go, and make sure that you have enough to actually also enjoy life, and not just work and hope for huge exit in 10 years. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
I have one more question. So, is it important for investors and VCs to have an exit strategy in the investment stage, or this decision usually could be made in some time? I mean,
yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Exit strategy is a thing you should have, actually, at least some kind of approach that you can change your mind, obviously, because we can all change our minds. But why you need to have an exit strategy is that investors also have different strategies, and some want to have exit sooner than later, and others are in for a long run. So, and also it gives an investor also our opportunity to understand how you see things, how you see this company. Is it a company that you want to just have a quick success story, or is this a company that if it's successful you will never want to quit, you will want to do it be in this field for next 10, 20 years? Or how do you see, or do you want to sell it, or make an IPO, or become passive and hire someone to run the company for you from some? So it's how you approach all of these things. It's important indicator of and to have a match with an investor, because now the investor also has some kind of strategy. Either maybe sometimes he hasn't thought. Because you need to understand, especially if VCs definitely have a very certain exit strategy, but angels not necessarily. Half of the angels are just doing it as a hobby, so that they haven't maybe even thought. But this doesn't mean that they actually will not have expectations. And when you find out those expectations in a second year, then you will have problems when you suddenly find that they are pushing you towards, increasing the valuations, and maybe hoping that they can exit when the VC enters, because sometimes when VC enters, they are also buying some of the shares that angels have, so that the angels can exit. So if you didn't know that, then you will suddenly see that your investors are getting very anxious and trying to push you somewhere. So in that sense, it's better if you say it up front, so that they can, even if they haven't formalized an exit strategy, they can see if it fits or not. They will just start to ask a lot of questions about it.
Okay, thank you.
Еще вопрос. А где вы обычно находили стартапы? Лично вы. Конкурсы стартапов, демо-дни, сарафанное радио и так далее.
All of them. Because I'm specifically making sure that I have a lot of different channels how to find. So I'm going to events. I'm part of the angel networks. I'm creating angel contact or investor contact list for myself, and I'm just talking to people and asking what do they have. I will share my deal flow. They will share themselves. People are finding us just going to our website. Emails, LinkedIn, you know, all the options are there. And for me, it's also easier because I'm also building a technology that is actually being used by the competitions and the angel networks and accelerators and so on. So I'm having a lot of opportunity to have a good deal flow. Let's see, I have some, as I said, maybe a couple of things when I'm now looking at the pitch deck. You will prepare a pitch deck, yes? So you need to understand that the first time I'm looking at the company, I just want to spend 1 minute or 2 minutes, okay? So whatever you present, the pitch deck or you just send an email, it has to be so that I'm willing to put another 30 minutes. So I will not make any definite final decisions, but I'm making always a decision. Will I, okay, first of all, it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, and will I actually read through the pitch deck properly, have 5-10 minutes for that? Will I then actually have 30 minutes to have a call with you or an hour to meet? And eventually I will be willing to invest up to 20 hours of due diligence before it becomes a real deal. So this means that if you're preparing a pitch deck and it doesn't give me enough of interest to actually put another half an hour into it, then this deck that you sent me has failed. Also the pitch if you make as well, especially I've been in many competitions where there are like Slush has like 2,000 startups. So in a competition, and I was one of the 60 jury members, and I looked through 100 cases. So you can guess how many seconds I spent per application in the first pile. It's like I'm looking like boom. Okay, revenues, when it's founded, is there any money in it? Okay, next. So it's very short moment you will get initially. Eventually you have to have a lot of time with the investor, but so investor is always looking to say no for up until they are actually meeting you in person. Okay, so anything before that, if we have a one-on-one meeting, and even during that one-on-one meeting, I'm just trying to find why I should pass this case. Okay, and then when the click goes, then I'm trying to convince that why I should invest in that case. Okay, so at some point there will be a click. I will start to like the case. Okay, but initially I just want to say no to everything. Okay, that's the default, and there's a contradicting thing that if you ask a lot of investors, they will say they are looking at the team. The team is the most important. It's kind of true, but in reality it's not, because if you see that actually they are not able to see the team first, you will always see a pitch or some one-liner or some one-pager or something, or you're presenting. They are not seeing actually the team, and they already will say no, that they're not interested. This means that actually investors are not evaluating the team first. They are actually evaluating everything else, because the team is most difficult to evaluate. And it takes most of the time, because then you need to meet and see maybe different founders actually to understand the team. So that's you should be aware. Another thing from psychological perspective is that all investors know that when startups are creating their company, then they are in love with that company, meaning that they think this is gonna change the world. So they are in this bubble, okay? And now the investor goes and okay, this guy is in a bubble. So I need to somehow understand what's actually happening. You know, what you are not telling. You're telling that you understand the customer or you know what, you know something, but I don't believe anything you say because you are in that bubble and I'm not. So I just want to understand what's the reality and what is the thing that you are not telling me, or what is the thing you're not even telling yourself, because I somehow need to assess what's actually going on. Yes, maybe. Okay, this I already I told that 60 seconds for profile, for 3 minutes to pitch, meeting up to an hour, and due diligence 20 hours. So that's the kind of stages that you will have in investors pipeline, and you need to get yes, 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 and then you will get money. So how many investors you think you need to talk before you get your first funding round together? Who thinks that he needs 10 investors? 10 investors? Okay. Who thinks that you need 20? 30? 50? 100? It's usually one question I ask also founders, how much time they are spending to fundraise. And if they are telling me that they are spending like 4 hours per week, then I can almost just pass this, because they do not consider, they don't know how much time it actually takes. It's like crazy work. Obviously there are exceptions, because if you have like traction like crazy, and then you will have investors popping in and out there everywhere. But usual case is that you need a lot of time to actually work. One founder has to do it full time when you are fundraising, because you need to compress a lot of time as well. I will compress a little bit as well. I don't know if this is interesting. Equity versus convertible loan. If you have questions, you can ask. Okay, here is the why you need to be doing it full time. Is that there is such a thing as a cool down effect, meaning that, let's say I gave you the yeses in all these phases, and now you have my 50,000 euro soft committed. Now what happens is that, and you are, let's say, raising 250,000, so you're still missing 200,000. Which means that until you have this 250,000, you actually have zero. Because if no other investor is putting the money, you don't have actually the money from me as well. And now the problem is how quickly you will get those other 200K. And if this will take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I'm already pretty sober now. And then I'm already have time to ask, okay, what progress did you make in these 3 months? Pretty much zero progress, okay. Then, you know, after 6 months you will get back, I now got this 250K, and I will say, you know what, I'm not interested anymore. And I'm not the only one who will say. So you think you have this now, 250,000, but if you go ask once again, you will only have like 50, because all the others already dropped off in this 6 months process, and maybe sometimes it's actually 12 months process. So so sometimes I suggest that a strategy where you will actually get the money right away. If someone says that, okay, I'm investing, okay, here is my term sheet, at least sign this immediately. Sometimes if you can do convertible note one at a time, just get them signed, get the money, so that they don't drop off in the process. Doesn't necessarily succeed always, but if there is an option, I recommend to use it, because otherwise you will need to get them all to sign, which is also very kind of, let's say if there are 5 guys now need to sign, then for some reason someone is traveling and the signature is not coming, and then you cannot close it, and then you need to start explaining why we haven't closed it, and then another one starts to doubt, okay, maybe if he's doubting, even not knowing why he's doubting, that maybe I shouldn't also, and it's kind of difficult to get the group of investors to sign it in one contract. Ideal world, this is actually preferred, because then everyone can be sure that they have exactly the same terms, and you don't have this cap table mess later on, and no one is being cheated or anything like this. I think, are we out of time? Yeah. So maybe some quick cases. For me, what are the kind of red flags? Okay, one thing I already mentioned. If I kind of perceive that there is a trust problem, that's definitely a no. One thing you shouldn't kind of make nicer is that if you're putting together a funding round and you will say, oh yeah, Rein and Mihkel and this fund and that fund, they already committed. Hello, did you commit? Or, no, what are you thinking about this? Yes, I saw the pitch deck. I never really actually yet made them. Okay, thank you very much. That's something that definitely investors will find out. If I pick that you are trying to play the game, that I will miss out because everyone is now closing and you will not be in it because you're too slow, then definitely I'm not gonna be in there, because that's a very dangerous game. So that's what I call investor traction, that who is on board. So say that, okay, I pitch to these guys, I'm now waiting for their answer, that's fine. Or I met them 3 times already, very good sign that you managed to meet someone with 3 times. They didn't sign anything, don't say that they are on board. If they obviously sign something, then you can tell it, because that's very strong argument. Okay, I made a contract term sheet with them, or they actually transferred the money already. So that's a solid statements. But oh yeah, I have like 70% of round, together. That's if it's not the reality, then it's very bad signal. And putting this sense of urgency also, I don't want to base my decision on sense of urgency. I think I've done one deal that I actually allowed this to influence my decision. So far, it's still a good startup, but that's usually if someone's saying that, yes, I need to close it, in April because X, Y, and Z, then okay, just go ahead, because I don't want to be a blocker, but don't push me because of this. For example, currently there is one case that is raising fund on Seeders. It's a UK crowdfund equity funding platform, and they approached us as well, and I actually even like the company, but they're saying that, okay, because it's a platform, you have like 5 days to make up your mind. Geez, I'm just not going to take this kind of push. If you really want the investment, you will find another way. And Now they postponed it like 2 weeks because I'm considering to put 100,000 euros. Obviously, they found all kind of ways how to actually do it, because nothing is, even if it's like crowdfunding and everything is announced, you will always find ways how to have more time if the investor needs more time and if he's serious. So it's like a bullshit game that you cannot do anything. You need to close it. So you can always do something, and especially if it's just between the investors. If it's not even in some kind of platform that actually does put deadlines for you, then they make all kind of amendments, adjustments when you actually want to invest. And another thing which I don't really like is that obviously if you present the case, I will naturally try to find what's not working. And if you will then basically explain to me that I'm stupid and this will work because of X, Y, Z, this means that you're not actually listening. You're not, obviously the things that I will try to find the weak spots, maybe they are not weak spots. You actually do have answers for those. Then defending actually is not the best way of convincing me, because defending is basically saying that you are wrong, okay? Instead, what you can do is that you say, okay, I understand what you are saying, and this might be even a case if this and that situation will occur. Now I can hear you that you're thinking with me, okay? But I've considered this, and I actually hired specifically for that this guy, and that's in our case, even sometimes it's better to say that yes, the risk is there. That's it, okay? There's no need. We are not expecting that there is no risk or no weak spots in what you're trying to do. If you are actually open and honest enough to say that yes, this risk is there and that risk is there, we might be able to overcome this risk. With that, maybe we'll not come. Sometimes I ask a question from startups. Okay, what do you think can fail? And this is very interesting to hear now. Some people will give me very different answers. Some will never list anything that they fail. They will start listing why it will not fail. Okay, interesting. Some will list why they fail and then immediately explain that this is not the case, what can happen. But I like actually most of the founders who will list me like 100 reasons why it will fail, which are all valid, and they will say, but I will do it anyway. Okay, it will fail because of this other thing, but I will do it anyway. And that's most kind of healthy way of thinking, is that obviously you can fail. It's we all fail, but if you kind of block out that you will fail, this means that you will not be listening not only to me, but actually what I'm most afraid is that you will not listen to your customer, because you will go to the customer as well, and the customer says, okay, do I really need this product or service? And you will say, of course you need, because I have all these answers for why you need it, and I don't really want this. Of course you want, because they're not listening to the customers as well. They're defending the case, and the customers vote with their feet, and there's no business. And the second thing you will not listen is your team. The team will say that I'm not sure that this can work actually. Maybe we didn't consider that and that. And if you always override the team as well, then that's very dangerous thing not to listen. So defense is a clear signal to me that startup founders are not listening. I will stop here. Yes?
Actually, yeah, we're a little bit out of time. And do you have any questions right now, guys? Yeah. Okay.
I have 3, but I will ask just one. I saw that you planned 20 hours for due diligence. How many days would the 20 hours take?
First of all, that's why I like syndicates. I don't want to do this 20 hours all by myself. I actually want that there is another, someone is doing technical part, I'm talking to founders, someone is doing legal, and we can combine it. I would say that one investment case, I would split between 4, 5, 6 touch points with the founders. So it can be Skype calls, physical meetings, just to discuss something, okay? So usually they are not in the same day, sometimes they are, so you can kind of calculate how many days it will take.
So you actually had cases when in less than 2 days after you made a decision, you actually did due diligence and went on board?
In 2 days, not really. Usually you want to have as much time between those.
That's why I'm asking about this time.
Okay, so there's a difference. Okay, okay, how long time period in total from the first and the, okay, I didn't understand the question. The average for us is, I would say 3 weeks is the average, which is the now verbal commitment. Okay, 50K, because after that, on average, it will take for a startup 2 months to get me the papers. On average, because if it's joint investment, then the others will, there will be, I think, there are deals that I've been waiting for the paper for work for 9 months, and that's not on my side, it's on the startup side. So some startups are quicker, they have prepared everything, then it can be 3 weeks. But usually they are not prepared, then they have all these back and forth things, and if it's very weird contract, then I obviously need to involve my legal side as well. Then it's okay, this is something I need to, usually I don't take too much time to make sure that the contract is my way. If I can understand it in general terms works for me, then I'm fine with it. In some specific cases I'm involving lawyers.
Well, now I have to ask my second question. Now when you brought all these legal issues and stuff, why your presentations say that a business angels doesn't like convertible loan? Standard contract, easier deals, easier to deal with legals.
The reason why you don't want to have a convertible loan is that from risk perspective, equity is equity, then it's done. Anything that is not equity can not end up in equity. Okay, there are like XYZ reasons why you will, because even from the legal's perspective, if you are already owner of the company shares, then it's very difficult to get you out from the cap table. It's almost impossible. But if you're not there, there are many ways that how the startup actually can prevent you getting in there, because now you need to prove why you should get it. So, that there's always the difference between who is this, not who owns the shares, but who is the one that actually needs to prove the case. If I'm on a cap table, then you as a founder need to approve that I shouldn't be there, or I should be there on different terms. But if I'm not there, then I need to go take you to the court and prove that I need to be there. So, which is a lot more effort. And so from risk perspective, you always want to be on a cap table. The only reason I'm not sometimes using the cap table, equity, is that the valuation is not fixed, okay? And there are many reasons why the valuation is not set. It can be milestone based. We can set some goals that if you get these KPIs, then the valuation is one, if not, then the other. Sometimes it's tight because you don't want to set the valuation because you are want to get the VC on board, and then you want the VC to negotiate the terms and everything. So if you will set it, then you will actually disturb this process for startup. So there's several reasons.
One more. Okay. Do you have questions?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. There was a question about how the list of investors can affect next round, and also you mentioned that this myth about the team is the most the key thing in the project, but what's your personal maybe checklist for what aspects are you checking usually to decide if you should invest or not? I understand there are no zero about, but what maybe any suggestions from your side?
What I'm looking at, first of all, for me, I will look everything else except the team in the beginning, because I will save my time. That's faster for me to check everything else. If everything else fits, then I will talk to the founders, and then I need to just have a good match with the person. So what do I look from the startup perspective? First of all, it has to be interesting for me. It's very subjective criteria. It's not if you're good or bad business, but it has to be interesting. If it's just, let me just think of a case. Okay, the last no I said was one company that is doing restaurant legislation documents. So whatever, when you ever have a restaurant, you have this paperwork that you need to go to this food kind of supervisory thing in a country. And there's a lot of paperwork actually going around. And all the restaurants are struggling. In that sense, it's and there is no startups almost there. So it's a good space. It looks good, but it's just a little bit boring. Okay, it's there's not too much for me to learn from that. So I want to make it interesting. So that second thing, for me, it's interesting if it has some kind of a business model that is not yet very widely used. It doesn't. You don't need to be the only one doing it, but in that industry, let's say I will bring another example. I'm flying on Friday. I will be in Spain. There is a global super angel summit, and 20 super angels getting together, and some of us will bring companies with us. So I brought also one portfolio company. I will bring there as well, and the one I chose is a company that is in cybersecurity. And what they do is that they usually cybersecurity trainings are classroom trainings. You know, people are sitting, and then I will sharing something, and you will make notes, and then you will try to apply. Which is there are two problems with this kind of model. First of all, it doesn't scale. You know, you need to get physically people to the class. You need to have those trainers physically present. Second of all, it's very bad way of actually learning. So instead, what they do is that they will do cyber security, cyber attack training simulations. Basically, instead of a training, you will be put into the real situation of, let's say, the DDoS attack or man in the middle attack, and you need to defend. And if you don't know how to defend, then you will get hints, and then you will learn by doing. Now, this you can do remotely, which means that the whole, and there is like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars invested on these cybersecurity trainings on banks and all levels of IT, and it's only increasing. So I like this case because they have a scalable, a different model of ways of doing business, and also the results that they get by training this way. So that's kind of business model, interesting business model. Another thing I like to see, if they have the capability to become number 2 in a region in that sector, okay? You don't need to necessarily be number 1, but if you are number 10 in that sector, let's say in Europe, then looking for potential only. It's not, usually if you will get to number 10, you might be also very good startup. But I'm trying to see if there is something. First of all, did you choose the niche well enough, or you know, what's happening in that niche? Is it like if there are in front of you like 10 startups that who are raised already tens of millions, then how will you compete with those? So that's a thing that I'm interested in, and since currently I'm interested in the new emerging technologies like AI and bots and blockchain. So if you have some interesting use case, I mean practical use case, because these days also there's a lot of buzzwords, you know, just put the buzzwords, and then you know, we have AI, and then I'm, you know, trying to understand what is this AI doing in your software, and then it's you know, if else statement somewhere in your workflow, then it's not it's not, there's nothing actually, it's just a word. But if you can actually use, and another practical example from the portfolio is that there's one company who is now actually they are not using blockchain. I can't bring that. They want to use, but they haven't. There's another interesting story there, interesting business model. But let's take another one. There's one chatbot company, and the use case is that they use it to fundraise from American universities are raising a lot of funds from their alumni, okay, and they are still doing it over the phone, calling, and you know, can you put $2,000 or whatever the amount is, and now they have the actual use case where they are doing the same thing, engaging with the messenger chatbot, okay, and that's very interesting use case, because you need to get to actually people to donate money. How do you make that personal? Very specific, narrow use case. But it's interesting how they learn and approach these different profiles of why someone is actually donating, the different cases, then trying to learn from which kind of decisions they did before they actually decided to invest. So they are doing very, very good, and that's an interesting case of actually applying the chatbot technology. So it doesn't have to be super magical thing, but it has to be practical thing, okay, that it's actually giving you an advantage which you don't otherwise have if you will use phone calls, for example.
Okay, and you said about business model, and it's very correlated to my second question. Yeah. Do you invest in R&D startups, not scientific only, but let's imagine that some people develop project, very new technology, maybe innovative. They have some very abstract product or market idea application. But do you invest in such kind of project? No. And maybe you can suggest some the strategy for such kind of projects.
It's very tough thing.
Very tough.
Because the problem with new technologies is that you are almost always in a wrong timing, because you can spend a lot of money in some technology, and it will not go mainstream anytime soon. And then if it goes, then it's too late already. So to have this very good timing for new technology, for angel investors, they shouldn't be in that scheme. That's, I think, is something that VCs are betting, First of all, they have more money, and they can take bets, meaning like really take bets. Okay, I will take from this industry 10, and I will bet on each of those. Angels cannot afford this, so we need cases which actually can sooner than later, rather than later, bring actual traction from the customers. And these new technologies, if you have wake application, that's my personal thing. Obviously, I know one in Angel who actually invested in a technology from university that is doing some kind of molecule coating, so which doesn't actually damage the material that is being coated. And one wake application is the air dye. You can color the hair, and because it doesn't damage it actually, and stays on it for quite a long time. So it's very vague, and when they will actually have some actual products out there. But he likes the idea and thinks that it's cool, and so he's investing in that type of thing. But it's not my strategy.
So your suggestion would be like just go directly to VC.
Sometimes you can go, yes, because some VCs do invest. But then you need to have really something, some patents or some kind of track record in that field, that you are number one in almost in the field doing this kind of thing. And then they can make quite early bets as well in things, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, because guys, I will just repeat. I know it's out of time, it's very late, and I really thank you, Rain. But if you have questions still, you can stay here and ask Rain in person. And I suppose now we have today some kind of recipe of ideal startup. So be honest. Be honest with your team and your investor. And love your idea, I suppose, something like this. Okay, thank you, Rain. Thank you, and just stay away.
Thank you.
If you ask question, please use Rain.
Thanks for coming. I have one question. It's Vladimir, we do drone delivery. My question is, last year when we went to the Latitude 59, I spoke with the guys in the startup-wise guys. They told me about this smart city test facility in Tartu.
Yes.
So my question is, I try to get some feedback, try to do research online. What is the progress, and is there any companies that actually got permission for their drones to fly? I know several Estonian startups working in the same way, more like with the
Yes, I'm not that familiar with this. Do you have any contact with those guys in South Smart City?
I have a contact with the guy who has a contact, but I mean,
I can do an intro if you want, because I cannot give you the answer on. I don't know about this.
I'm pretty sure if there would be an operational case of drone delivery.
In Estonia?
Yeah, in Tartu.
In Tartu? No, there is practical case. I don't know that there is. But I know that Estonia tries to be a country which is willing to change regulations.
I've seen it twice already.
Yes, so let's say...
With Starship and with autonomous cars.
Yes, with autonomous cars, yes. So I don't want to say that there is no one working on that, but I don't really know what's the status. So practically it hasn't happened, something is smoking yet, but
I actually, when I met with the guy who made the legislation for both cases, he told me that this thing is in progress, but you know, from time to time it can end, you know, drones not there yet. But as I was told, in Tartu there will be a special legal case, and you can test things which are not allowed to do in Estonia. Actually, yeah, I would like.
I can do an intro because that's most practical. There is actually, I know also a lot of drone stuff is happening in Denmark. There is a city called I didn't know about this city as either, but they said that they have like that's maybe one of the reasons, but they have like 100, 200 companies on robotics and drones and stuff like this in that area. So maybe they have also some kind of.
You also know the guys.
Somewhere in the LinkedIn I have them. So if you ping me, maybe I'm able to find it. Although LinkedIn is a terrible thing to search. So I have a contact, but I'm not sure I can find it.
If you want, I have a friend who actually is down in the database of LinkedIn in order to make it searchable. Maybe you will invest.
Okay. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
In Belarus, there is a lot of possibility to receive land, to become a land owner for free, almost for free.
Okay.
And there is a possibility to create a garden, apple, pear garden.
Yes.
Is it possible to attract some investors who can help to create such garden, because it needs some investment?
This is not considered angel investing. So from Nordics, I would say no. I don't think so. But I think it's more possible from the Central Europe. Let's say I know Portugal has a couple of cases where they invest in kind of farming and different types of projects that are not specifically high tech. But Estonia and Nordics, no, I don't think so. I'm not. There's always exceptions, but
No trees in Estonia.
but
No gardens.
because they want all have exponential growth. So and how can you have exponential growth? It's like it's a really good cash flow business, I assume, if it works. Obviously.
And how many success cases do you have in comparing to the amount of the investments you do? How many projects succeed and how many fail? Like
My portfolio is 3 years old. Almost most of them are 3 years old. Yeah. So I have no failures and no exits. So I cannot tell you the answer.
Во-первых, он не отвечал на этот вопрос, по крайней мере,
I showed one slide. It says that 50% of the cases fail. Usually they bring less money back than the
информации. В первую очередь инвестируют в интересный проект. А остальное уже смотрят. Если твой проект интересный, и условием будет релокейт, ты согласен, есть о чем говорить. Если не инвестируют в белорусский проект, но проект не интересен, предыдущий твои инвестиции не имеют. Все такие общие вопросы, они
it's like 3-4 times of our money invested. Now, no, it's more than 5 years. 5-6 years.
3-4 times when it comes to like 80%
In terms of ROI, actually, you would want to have 30%. So it's consisting of, some cases are longer than others. So usually, Finnish Business Network did a study and they had 40 investors that made exits, and the result they got is that they had average was 34% of return on investment. That was for people in Estonia. It's not valid yet because we don't have too many exits yet, so it's not statistically viable.
when you invest, you know, mostly you depend on
becoming